What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of news coming out of Minneapolis. That's where we are headed over to today. And I cannot wait to play this video clip for you here because it was announced not too long ago the widespread immigration fraud that's happening in Minneapolis. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow announced this not too long ago, and I cannot wait to play this video for you, okay? But before we do that, we have to come back on over to here, specifically to Minnesota, because as you can see here, Trump terminates deportation protections for Somali nationals living in Minnesota effective immediately. Let's unpack this article here, and then we're going to get into the operation that they partake in Minnesota and unpack some of what's going on with all of this widespread fraud that's happening in Minneapolis. President Donald Trump Friday evening said he was ending deportation protections for Somalis in Minnesota effective immediately. Minnesota, under Governor Tim Walz, is a hub for fraudulent money laundering activity, Trump posted on Truth Social. He continued, "I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating effective immediately the temporary protection status for Somalis in Minnesota." The article continues to read, Trump claimed that Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of the great state and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over, President Donald J. Trump. Minnesota has a sizable Somali population, and the TPS program allows Somali nationals temporary legal status to live and work in the U.S. because of the dangerous conditions in the African country. In the last several years, the states have faced fraud problems, most notably from the Feeding Our Future scheme, which embezzled hundreds of millions of dollars in C-19 funds. The president's decision comes as a new investigation from the Manhattan Institute alleged that millions of dollars were being funneled to the Somali terror group Al-Shabaab in connection with the Feeding Our Future scam. Ryan Thrope and Christopher F. Rufo of the Manhattan Institute said they had uncovered a web of fraud involving Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Service program, Feeding Our Future, and other organizations in a report. They added that federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars in stolen funds were sent back to Somalia, which is how Al-Shabaab got the cash. Wow. So that's what we have going on over there in Minnesota, right? Allegedly, I guess technically I have to say. But now what I want to do is transition back over to the clip that I presented to you at the top of this video, because once again, an operation was done by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow, and the amount of fraud that was found in Minneapolis was mind-blowing. So I want to play this clip for you next. Check this out here.
Officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies. Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens and organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases. Some of the other troubling cases that our officers found. In one case, officers identified an alien who had overstayed his visa waiver, who was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He had previously been found to have engaged in marriage fraud, which resulted in the denial of several immigration benefit requests. He was arrested and is now presently being returned to his country of origin. In another, an individual admitted to obtaining a fake death certificate in Kenya for just $100 to prove he was no longer married. In reality, his wife is alive, living here in Minneapolis, and is the mother of 5 of his children. And incidentally, he has another wife living in Sweden with whom he has an additional 3 children.
Wow, my man is wilding out, just popping up families just all over the world. That's crazy work. Well, let's let it continue. There's about 30 more seconds left, but that just threw me when I heard that right there. You just got multiple large families across the globe. Is crazy.
In another case, an alien entered the United States without inspection in 2023, was released by Border Patrol. The alien married a U.S. citizen while in removal proceedings and was interviewed at the Minneapolis-St. Paul USCIS field office just last week, where both he and his American spouse, stated under oath that their marriage was legitimate. The USCIS officers conducting the interview were suspicious. The site visits were authorized the same day. The American spouse ultimately that afternoon admitted the marriage was fraudulent and entered into solely for immigration purposes and withdrew her petition for that alien.
The amount of immigration fraud and just fraud overall going on in Minnesota and Minneapolis as a whole is out of control. And when it comes to the feeding our future fraud that we've discussed on this channel a handful of occasions, this is something that's been going on since the top of the year. Many people have been talking about this and reporting on this over and over and over again. And it's a story that just will not go away out of Minnesota, because till this very day, I'm talking about as of 4 days ago, the 77th person was charged in this fraud case. The 77th. A bunch have already been found guilty and going to jail and have gone to jail already. And I kid you not, it just seems like every day they find a new person that gets hit with a new charge. Look at this here. This is out of control. Now look at this here. 77th defendant charged in feeding our future fraud scheme. After being disqualified from SNAP for suspected fraud, Kamara defrauded the federal child nutrition program. Unbelievable. Look at this here. Minneapolis. Usman Kamara, age 45, was indicted today in a 9-count indictment with wire fraud, federal programs bribery, and money laundering for his participation in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, announced U.S. Attorney Daniel N. Rawson. Kamara is the 77th defendant indicted in what has been identified as the largest C-19 fraud scheme in the country. Defendant Kamara was the owner of Kay's Dollar Grocery and Deli, a small storefront grocery store in North Minneapolis. In August 2015, the USDA disqualified Kamara and his store, Kay's Grocery, from participation in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, due to suspected fraud. So this guy's been being suspected of fraud since 2015, okay? He's been in this country for a long time playing games in an attempt to steal taxpayer-funded dollars. But I digress. Let's fast forward to 2020. Why? Because in September of 2020, Kamara enrolled Kay's Grocery in the Federal Children Nutrition Program under the sponsorship of Feeding Our Future. In 2020 and in 2021, Kamara fraudulently claimed to be serving meals to 1,000 children a day, 7 days a week, at his site. In reality, Kamara did not do such a thing. Instead, he defrauded the program and stole money meant to feed hungry children. Kamara claimed to have served more than 300,000 meals to children, for which he claimed to be entitled to more than $1 million in federal child nutrition program reimbursement funds. Kamara did not use these funds to purchase food to feed children. Instead, he used the money to fund his lifestyle, pay his credit card bills and buy a building in North Minneapolis. Now, this is really important here. Check this out. Kamara wired more than $100,000 in fraud proceeds abroad. Who did he send that money to? Who did he send that money to? Who did we speak on earlier? I believe it was the Manhattan Institute that talked about fraudulent money, money that was stolen from taxpayers, right? Being sent to a Somalian terrorist organization back in Somalia. Who did this man send that $100,000 to? That's what we need to find out. But that's really important to highlight. I didn't want to just move quickly past that, but just let that sit on your mind for a moment, okay? Now, as we continue on, Kamara also paid approximately $87,000 in kickbacks to a Feeding Our Future employee in exchange for his sponsorship and submission of Kamara's fraudulent claims. This case is the result of an investigation conducted by the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the United States Postal Inspection Service, and the Internal Revenue Service criminal investigation. The fraud is out of control. But most importantly, outside of the fact that these guys are stealing money left and right? Taxpayer dollars. We're talking about millions upon millions upon millions. This is the 77th guy at this point who's been charged. You really have to think about where, in fact, this money is going and how valid is the Manhattan Institute's claim in their investigation and their report that so much of this fraudulent money, not just from the Feeding Our Future scheme, but from all the fraud activity that's happening over there in Minneapolis, how much of this money is actually being funneled to the terrorist organization in Somalia? What is their name again? I believe it's called like Al-Shabaab, something like that. You know, how much of this is actually being funneled to them? Because it wasn't stated here in this report where the money went, because as of now, they don't know. All they do know in regards to this man here, the 77th defendant who's been charged, is that he's sent more than $100,000 abroad. I think it's more than safe to say we know that he sent it to Somalia, allegedly. I assume. But he's not the only one. And you better believe 100,000 US dollars goes a long way in Somalia. That goes you are like a multi-millionaire a trillion times over in Somalia with $100,000 US dollars. Okay. And this isn't the only guy that has allegedly done this. Dozens, if not hundreds, are sending money that way. Something to think about. It's something to think about. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegrams in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.